hoping and I'm praying that Justin is looking down from heaven, rejoicing that today there's some justice.
It's a Friday morning in March 1989, and a 5-year-old boy named Justin Turner is getting ready for kindergarten. He eats his favorite cereal, the cinnamon kind, pulls on his shoes, and heads out the door to walk down a dirt road to catch the school bus. It's a short walk, one he's made 100 times before, but this time, Justin never makes it. He vanishes somewhere between his front door and the bus stop, in broad daylight, in a quiet little community where everybody knows everybody. And what investigators would eventually find 2 days later would horrify an entire town, split a family in half, and set off a legal battle that wouldn't end for 35 years. If you're new here and love true crime, like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. Justin lived just outside Moncks Corner, South Carolina, in Berkeley County, with his dad, Victor Turner, and his stepmom, Pamela. It was the kind of rural community where the roads were dirt, the houses were spread out, and everybody genuinely knew everybody else's business. The kind of place where you'd think nothing bad could ever happen, because there was nowhere for anything bad to hide. Justin's routine was simple. Walk down the road, meet a neighbor's grandson, another little boy also named Justin, and the two of them would catch the bus together to Whitesville Elementary. It was a routine so normal, so unremarkable, that nobody thought twice about a 5-year-old making that short walk alone. That's just how it was out there. That morning, the bus rolled up without him. His classmates figured he was just homesick. Kids miss school all the time, right? Nothing to worry about. But as the day dragged on, that easy explanation started to fall apart. When school let out and Justin still wasn't home, his stepmother went next door around 4:30, 5 o'clock, asking if anyone had seen him. That's when his friend told her the truth. Justin never got on the bus. Everyone had just assumed he was sick. That's the moment the panic set in. Pamela called 911, and just like that, a quiet Friday afternoon turned into every parent's worst nightmare. Deputies got there fast. By early evening, the search was already underway around the Turner property on Horseshoe Road, a rural stretch surrounded by woods and fields. Flashlights swept through the trees as darkness fell. Neighbors, family, and officers combed every inch they could reach, calling his name into the night, their voices carrying farther and farther into the dark as the hours ticked by with no answer. Think about that for a second. A community full of people who'd known this family for years, walking through the woods at night, shouting a little boy's name, and hearing absolutely nothing back. They searched the house. They searched the yard. They checked under the porch, inside vehicles, inside outbuildings. They crawled under the home itself. Dogs were brought in, ponds were dragged. Nobody had seen a stranger on that road. Nobody had heard anything unusual. It was like the little boy had simply dissolved into the South Carolina pines. By Saturday, the search had exploded. Over 100 people, deputies, firefighters, volunteers, all fanning out around the property, hoping, praying, that Justin had just wandered off and would come stumbling out of the woods any minute. Parents in the neighborhood started keeping their own kids inside. One grandfather wouldn't even let his grandson play in the front yard anymore. Only the backyard, only where he could see him. Everyone had a theory. Maybe Justin ran off on his own, but he was 5, and he wasn't the type to wander. Maybe it was a custody dispute gone wrong, since his parents had gone through a rough divorce not too long before. Or maybe, and this was the thought nobody wanted to say out loud, someone had taken him right off that road. 2 full days went by. Dozens of investigators walked that property over and over, and still, nothing, which left everyone with a chilling question. If Justin was somewhere on that land, how had so many trained searchers missed him? And if he wasn't there at all, that meant someone had carried him far, far away. Meanwhile, word of Justin's disappearance had already spread through Justin's mother's side of the family. His maternal grandfather got the call first, that Friday afternoon, that his grandson hadn't made it home. Relatives dropped everything and rushed to Moncks Corner, some of them driving through the night, all of them holding on to whatever hope they could as the search stretched into a second, agonizing day. Then came Sunday morning, March 5th. Victor Turner, Justin's own father, was out searching the property again, right alongside investigators. He walked over to an old travel camper parked on the family's land, a camper that had already been checked, more than once, by more than one person. He pulled open a cabinet door inside it. and he screamed. "Here he is, here he is." Searchers came running. Someone shouted for everyone to stand back, and there, tucked inside a small built-in storage cabinet, was the body of 5-year-old Justin Turner. Take a second with that, because it only gets more disturbing from here. Justin had been strangled, and the autopsy would later confirm he'd also been sexually assaulted. The medical examiner determined he died from strangulation with some kind of strap, and based on the food still in his stomach, they could tell he'd died within just a few hours of leaving the house that morning. Whatever happened to Justin, it happened fast, and it happened close to home. And then there was the detail that made grown investigators' skin crawl. When they pulled his body from that cabinet, several people who touched him said he felt cold. Not just cool from lying outside for 2 days, but unnaturally, deeply cold. Cold enough that people started wondering out loud if his body had been kept somewhere frozen, maybe to slow decomposition, maybe to keep the smell down while 100 people searched the property around him. Deputies seized a chest freezer from the home. They collected items from a storage shed. They were chasing every possible explanation for how a little boy's body could feel that cold 2 days after he disappeared. It's worth mentioning that this theory was never fully proven. Later analysis suggested the coldness could simply have come from the cool spring nights typical of that part of South Carolina, and the freezer itself showed no biological traces linking it to Justin. Still, in those first raw hours after his body was found, it was one more detail that made an already horrifying scene feel even more calculated. But here's the part of this case that really doesn't sit right. That camper had already been searched, more than once, by more than one person. So how did Justin end up in a cabinet that multiple sets of eyes had already looked inside and found empty? The sheriff at the time would later say it plainly. Search teams reported that Justin was not there before, meaning, at some point during those 2 frantic days of searching, somebody moved his body into that camper, which means whoever did this didn't just kill Justin. They stayed close, they watched the search happen, and at some point, when the coast looked clear, they slipped his body into a spot they knew wouldn't be checked again. That's not the work of a stranger who grabbed a kid off the street and ran. That's someone who never left. And there was more. Justin's clothes and shoes were clean. No mud, no grass stains, no pine needles. Nothing you'd expect from a little boy who'd supposedly been outside for 2 days in the South Carolina woods. Which told investigators he probably hadn't been running around outdoors at all. He'd likely been killed somewhere clean, somewhere indoors, and then carried to where he was found. And the camper itself? Kept locked. According to investigators, only 2 people had keys to it and regular access to it before Justin's body turned up. His father, Victor, and his stepmother, Pamela. So just like that, this stopped being a search for a missing child and became a homicide investigation aimed squarely at the people closest to him. Detectives from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division joined Berkeley County deputies on the property, and together they processed the scene late into that Sunday night, swabbing for prints, bagging clothing and bedding, and documenting every inch of that camper. The hope that this was a stranger abduction, the kind of case where a predator slips in and out of a community unnoticed, was quietly slipping away with every hour that passed. Investigators had to look at everyone close to Justin, and that included his biological mother, 26-year-old Elaine Pace. Elaine and Victor had gone through a bitter divorce, with Victor winning custody. Elaine had wanted her son back. On paper, that's a motive detectives can't ignore. But when deputies called her at work that Friday to ask where Justin was, her response said everything. "I do not have my son. Will you please find my son?" She and her husband had rock-solid alibis, both at work that morning in a different town entirely. She rushed to the search site and stayed there, frantic, just like everyone else. Within days, she was ruled out completely, which brought the investigation right back to the house Justin actually lived in. Nobody wanted to believe Victor or Pamela could have hurt him. By every account, Justin was a sweet, affectionate kid who loved both of them. There was no history of abuse reports, nothing on file with social services, but the cracks in Pamela's story started showing almost immediately. At first, she told police Justin got on the bus and went to school that day. That story fell apart within hours, because the school confirmed he never showed up, and neighbors said they never saw him that morning either. So her story changed. Now she said she hadn't seen him after around 11 a.m. Under more questioning, she eventually admitted something she'd left out entirely at first. She and Justin had gotten into an argument that very morning over his behavior. Meanwhile, people started looking sideways at Victor too. Investigators were struck by how fast, how directly, he went straight to that cabinet on Sunday morning. Not a slow, methodical search. He walked over and opened it, and found his son within seconds. And in an unsettling moment right there at the crime scene, Victor turned to an officer and asked what would happen if someone in the family had done this. Both Victor and Pamela agreed to polygraph tests. Pamela failed hers, though it later came out she'd taken Valium beforehand, which can throw off results. A second test was scheduled, but then the sheriff at the time went public, naming Pamela as a suspect to the press. On the advice of an attorney, she shut down completely. No second polygraph, no more cooperation. From that point on, both Victor and Pamela went silent. There was one more detail that stuck with investigators for years afterward. A deputy who'd been among the very first responders insisted he had thoroughly searched that camper on day one and found nothing unusual. But when he sat for a polygraph about how thorough that search really was, he failed it too. It's a small thread in a case full of them, but it's the kind of thread that makes you wonder just how many hands touched that camper before Justin's body ended up inside it, and whether every one of those hands told the full truth about what they saw. By December of 1989, 9 months after Justin's death, a grand jury charged Pamela with his murder. She was arrested, then released on bond. The community exploded. Some people were absolutely convinced she'd done it. Others couldn't picture the woman they knew hurting a child she'd raised for years. And through all of it, Pamela maintained she was innocent. The problem was, the forensic evidence was basically useless. Justin lived in that house. His DNA, his hair, his fingerprints, they were supposed to be there, and so were Victor's and Pamela's. There was no unknown fingerprint, no mystery hair, nothing pointing to an outsider or definitively confirming an insider. The case was built almost entirely on inconsistent stories, a failed polygraph, and deeply suspicious behavior. Nothing physical to seal it shut. And it showed. In 1990, prosecutors brought the case back to a grand jury, hoping for an indictment that would send it to trial. The grand jury said no, not enough evidence. The murder charge against Pamela was dropped, and the case dropped right back into the unsolved pile. For the lead investigator on the case, that outcome never sat right. He remained convinced for the rest of his career that the crime scene had been staged, and that the family knew far more than they ever admitted. He'd later say he believed that if he'd been given the chance to keep pursuing Pamela back in 1990, it might have led somewhere. Instead, the file got boxed up, and Justin Turner became a name attached to an open but inactive case, one of those files that sits in a cabinet gathering dust while the world moves on. If you're finding this one as unsettling as I do, that's your sign to hit like on this video. It genuinely helps more people find Justin's story. Here's where it gets even stranger. Victor and Pamela didn't stick around Berkeley County. They packed up and moved. Pamela legally changed her first name from Pamela to Meghan, seemingly to put some distance between herself and everything the town believed about her. And for the next 3 decades, they lived quietly, never once reaching back out to the sheriff's office to ask if there'd been any progress, any new leads, anything at all about the murder of their own son. Justin's mother's side of the family, on the other hand, never stopped calling, never stopped pushing. Elaine Pace spent the rest of her life fighting for her son. She believed, deep down, that Pamela knew exactly what happened that day. She never got the proof she needed. In 2004, at just 47 years old, Elaine passed away after a long illness, 15 years into a fight for justice she never got to see finished. Before she died, she made her husband promise to keep going. Keep it in the news, she told him. Fight the battle for her. And he did. Justin's cousin Amy Parsons picked up that same fight. On the 25th anniversary of his death, she started a Justice for Justin page, pushing the case back into the public eye, giving interviews, refusing to let her cousin become just another cold file gathering dust in a filing cabinet. And in 2016, 27 years after Justin died, it worked. A newly elected sheriff, Dwayne Lewis, sat down with the family and agreed to reopen the case. He'd inherited a stack of unsolved files when he took office, and Justin stood out from the rest, not just because of how disturbing the crime was, but because of just how loudly this community had never stopped talking about it. This time, they had tools the original investigators never had: modern DNA profiling, advanced fiber analysis, databases that simply didn't exist in 1989. Detectives went back through every scrap of the old file, every witness statement, every piece of physical evidence that had been sitting in storage for decades. And they found something. A leash had been taken from the Turner home back in 1989, suspected as the possible murder weapon. Using modern forensic techniques, analysts matched fibers from that leash to fibers found in Justin's neck wounds and on his shirt collar. For the first time in over 30 years, there was an actual physical link tying something from inside that house directly to the murder. Investigators also went back and looked again at things that had been sitting in plain sight for decades, but had never had enough weight behind them on their own. The fact that Justin's clothes were spotless, the fact that only 2 people had keys to that camper, the fact that a news crew's camera had actually been rolling the moment Victor pulled that cabinet open, capturing him finding his son within seconds of stepping inside, almost as if he already knew exactly where to look. On their own, none of these things proved anything. Together, alongside the new fiber match, they painted a picture prosecutors felt was finally strong enough to act on. By 2021, the cold case team believed they finally had enough. And in January of 2024, 35 years after Justin vanished, deputies arrested 66-year-old Meghan Pamela Turner and 68-year-old Victor Turner at their home and charged both of them with murder. It made headlines across the entire state. The case everyone in Berkeley County had quietly believed was solved for decades, at least in their own minds, was finally, officially, back in a courtroom. If you're still with me, drop a quick comment and tell me where you're tuning in from, and stick around, because what happens next in this case might make you angrier than anything you've heard so far. Both were released on relatively low bond, with strict conditions: surrender their passports, stay in South Carolina, no contact with Justin's mother's side of the family. Amy Parsons and the rest of Justin's relatives showed up to every single hearing, wearing his photo, demanding accountability after 35 years of waiting. But the case the prosecution had was still fundamentally circumstantial. No DNA directly tying the Turners to the murder itself, which honestly made sense, since any trace of them on their own child would be completely explainable either way. The whole case hinged on that fiber match, on their shifting stories from 1989, and on statements witnesses claimed to remember from over 3 decades ago. And then the defense threw a curveball nobody saw coming. Turner's attorney suggested that the real killer might not have been a family member at all, but a convicted serial predator named Richard Mark Evenitz, a man who killed at least 3 girls in Virginia in the 90s, before taking his own life, as police closed in on him in 2002. It turned out Evenitz had actually been stationed with the Navy in Charleston back in 1989, not far from where Justin lived. His known methods, abduction, strangulation, sexual assault, lined up disturbingly close to what happened to Justin, and because Evenitz had been cremated, there was no way to test his DNA to rule him in or out. Prosecutors were caught off guard. One of them admitted in court that this was, in his words, pretty explosive information, and asked for more time to dig into it. Then, in June of 2024, the judge made his ruling, and it stunned everyone. He dismissed the murder charges against both Victor and Meghan Turner entirely, not just dropped, dismissed with prejudice, meaning prosecutors could never bring these charges against them again. The judge's reasoning came down to 2 things. First, he didn't consider the fiber evidence truly new, since the fibers themselves had existed since 1989, only the technology to analyze them was new. And second, over 35 years, more than 20 potential witnesses had died or become unavailable, including Justin's own mother. Without those people alive to testify and be cross-examined, the judge ruled that a fair trial simply wasn't possible anymore. And just like that, the case that took 35 years to reopen was closed again, permanently, without a single conviction. The prosecutor's office publicly conceded they had no real grounds to appeal, admitting that mistakes made decades earlier, lost evidence, faded memories, witnesses who were simply no longer alive, could never truly be undone. Sometimes, as painful as it is to say, time itself becomes the biggest obstacle to justice, bigger than any defense attorney or any piece of missing evidence ever could be. The reaction was immediate, and it was raw. Meghan Turner told reporters it had been, quote, a living hell, living under suspicion for 35 years. Victor said he was glad to finally hold his head up, but that the pain of losing his son never went away, and that he blamed the original investigation for focusing so heavily on him and Pamela that the real killer, if it wasn't them, was never properly pursued. Justin's family saw it entirely differently. In a statement, they said the justice system had failed an innocent 5-year-old boy, and that whoever was responsible would ultimately answer for it, if not here, then somewhere beyond this world. Amy Parsons vowed the fight for Justin would never truly stop, even if the courtroom door had officially closed. So here's where this case sits today. Officially unsolved. No conviction. No one legally held responsible for what happened to Justin Turner. Victor and Meghan Turner are free, cleared, and can never be charged again for his murder. And in the community where this all happened, plenty of people still believe they know exactly who was responsible. They just never got the chance to prove it in front of a jury. What happened to Justin also changed the way that entire community raised their kids. Parents who once let their children roam free on those quiet dirt roads started keeping them close, watching the driveway, walking them to the bus stop themselves. A tragedy like this doesn't just take one child. It reshapes how an entire generation of parents sees the world around them, and that ripple effect outlasted every hearing, every appeal, every headline this case ever generated. Justin was laid to rest back in March of 1989 at Somerville Cemetery, not far from where his mother would later be buried herself. Over 200 people came to his funeral for a boy who never made it past kindergarten, his small casket surrounded by some of his favorite toys, tokens of a childhood that ended far too soon. His childhood best friend, the boy who waited at the bus stop for him that morning and never saw him again, grew up and got a tattoo of Justin's face on his leg, so he'd never stop carrying him with him. Decades later, he still visits the grave. He said there isn't a single day that goes by where he doesn't think about his buddy and wonder what really happened to him on that road. Even now, more than 36 years later, people still leave flowers and small toys at Justin's grave. Some are family, some are strangers who simply heard his story and felt like he deserved to be remembered by more than just the people who knew him. Justin's mother never got to see any of this unfold. She passed away in 2004, 20 years before charges were ever filed, still believing, still fighting, still waiting for a call that never came in her lifetime. Her husband kept the promise he made her, kept Justin's name in the news, kept pushing right alongside the rest of the family, all the way to that courtroom in 2024. It's a strange, heavy kind of legacy, a mother's 15 years of persistence outliving her, carried forward by the people who loved her and loved her son. And that's really the hardest part of cases like this one. There's no tidy ending here. No verdict that lets you close the book and walk away feeling like the world balanced itself back out. Just a little boy who never got to grow up, a family that spent 35 years demanding answers, and two people who walked out of a courthouse legally free, while an entire community still quietly makes up its own mind about what really happened on that dirt road. Whatever really happened on that dirt road back in March of 1989 walked free from a courtroom in 2024, and Justin Lee Turner, forever 5 years old, is still waiting for an answer nobody's been able to prove. If this case stuck with you the way it stuck with me, do me a favor, hit like, subscribe for more cases like this one, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from tonight. Thanks for sticking around till the end.